Now, there are just a bunch of badass and cool moments in anime, but there's nothing like the MC going completely overkill against their enemies. We have a little girl shooting out nukes, a giant monster meets a giant robot, and a bald man punches an alien to death. Megumin and Yunyun explosion magic, Konosuba. We have to start our list with a bang, and who better to do this than with our very own friendly village mage, Megumin from Konosuba. But she's not alone because her blessed friend Yunyun is with her. They just had to do this because Kazuma was trapped by a giant booby monster, and they even had the magical power of everyone in their village. I'm gonna tell you right here and now that even though this is a comedy anime, the animation will melt your eyes at just how good it is. With the stars and lights and even the explosion itself, Megumin was feeling it and so was I. It was so strong that the giant Sylvia's man-woman centaur defensive magic was immediately broken just a few seconds after the spell landed. It was quite literally a piercing nuke, and the funniest thing about this is that Kazuma got hit anyways. Richter introduces himself with knives, Castlevania Nocturne.
I am Richter Belmont, last descendant of the Belmont clan, and I kill vampires!
Now, this next one might not go boom, but man, Richter was so badass and funny at the same time, I didn't even know what to say. You see, in Castlevania, there's this family of really cool but really sarcastic vampire hunters called the Belmonts. In Castlevania Nocturne, Richter was the one who took on that role, and bro was doing it with finesse. They were in a dungeon, and this vampire that looked like he was from the 1800s started going after him, but it was a big mistake. Bro casually pulled out 3 knives, punched the vampire with them, and then proceeds to pull out a dozen more and throws them all one by one while telling everyone who the hell he is. It was definitely completely unnecessary, but so cool at the same time. I mean, the guy was already dead because of that first punch, but he just had to behead him too. Hyakkimaru's revenge against soldiers, Dororo. The first two were pretty awesome to look at, but if you've watched Dororo, then this is the part where real men started tearing up, because it's Hyakkimaru versus the soldiers in Dororo. You see, in all his life, Hyakkimaru was the guy that people either hated or were disgusted by. I mean, even his own father abandoned him. But he finally saw that there was some good when he met Mio. But life just sucks, and some random dudes take her away from him too, and that's where he just loses it. He goes beast mode and kills every single one of them in the most brutal ways possible. My man couldn't even see. He had no hands, but they didn't stand a chance. He was jumping all over the place, slicing and dicing the soldiers as he bathed in their blood. That's why you don't mess with the girl. Guts versus 100 soldiers, Berserk. Hyakkimaru may have soloed a dozen samurai, but Guts from Berserk takes it to a whole nother level, as my man went 1 versus 100. And they weren't just swordsmen either, they were crossbowmen, and some dudes with spears, but he just kept on going and didn't go down, even when he was shot in the leg. All Guts had was that frickin' giant sword and some badass willpower. With just one hand, he swung that great sword so hard that soldiers with full body armor were cut in half like they were butter. What makes this even more legendary is the fact that he was already pretty wounded before the battle started, but he still made them run. He even had the time to have an internal monologue while doing it. Tanya unloads magazine on Colonel Sue, Saga of Tanya the Evil. Moving on, we have one of the most underrated isekai anime of all time, Saga of Tanya the Evil. During this moment, she was up against a man known as Colonel Sue, and it was a battle mage dogfight through and through. At first, it seemed like she had already won, but the Colonel had a little bit of Japanese blood in him and decided he was gonna blow himself up and take Tanya with him. But this little gremlin managed to get away, and what did she do? She unloaded an entire freaking magazine on the poor man. And if that wasn't enough, Tanya added a bit of flair by barraging him with bullets with one hand. Well, he did still blow up and cause a bit more damage, but hey, if an entire mag wasn't gonna stop him, then there was nothing that Tanya could do. Shinra 1 second Adola burst. Fire Force. Next up, we have Shinra's 1 second Adola burst in Fire Force. Now, this moment wasn't only overkill, but Shinra pulled off one of the most insane clutches in all of anime. He was only going to receive 1 second worth of grace, but this Chad said that 1 second was already plenty. And he wasn't joking. As soon as he woke up, even the animation went 3 times speed. It was so fast that the sound effects glitched, and all we could see next was a giant explosion in the middle of the sky. It was a 100% WTF moment for us and for the characters, because who in their right mind animated all those frames and then just played them at super fast speeds? I'm not complaining though, because it was freaking insane. Not to mention, a demon infernal isn't just some fodder. It's actually a really strong member that requires some serious firepower. Shinra took the phrase "give me a sec" too literally, and I'm here for it because we got this masterpiece. Super Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann versus Anti-Spiral Gurren Lagann. In Gurren Lagann, both the main characters and the main villains went overkill, not only in terms of power, but in terms of size too. The entities surrounding the anti-spiral in Super Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann may look like galaxies, but it was confirmed by the creator that the things that they were throwing around were literal universes. I mean, how insane is that? Their Giga Drill Break was even bigger than them too, and so it was so powerful that it erased all of existence and caused it to explode back again into reality. Just imagine how many species went extinct because of this single battle. This was overkill to the max, and all of us probably agree with each other. And of course, it ends with a classic fistfight because Simone had enough badassery to fistfight a god. Every time I watch this, I just feel the synergy of the music, animation, and sound effects touch the very essence of my soul. Ainz kills 100,000 men. Overlord.
あれは夢だよな。
So far, our record when it comes to one versus many fights in this video is guts, but Ainz just came knocking, and he said he did something even better. My man didn't just kill 100, not 1,000, but 100,000 men. And what made this even more overkill was that it was only just the beginning. It was supposed to be these two armies fighting against each other, and Ainz was just there to lend a helping hand. Well, they didn't expect that he was gonna give them a show by using 100,000 men as a sacrifice, and then killing thousands more when these giant goat monsters started rampaging all over the battlefield. The magic was so strong that it knocked back the CGI all the way back to the early 2000s. It was traumatic for everyone, even for the winning side. And that's when you know that they went beyond overkill. Imagine being so terrifying that even your allies don't really know what to feel about you. Anos kills and resurrects enemy. Misfit of the Demon King Academy.
そうか、このハンマの鎧を突破できないから言うわけよ。どうやら貴様の魔法は戦いにこれは。
But speaking of trauma, Anos is another Demon King who knows how to give his opponents PTSD. I mean, this guy was all talk and was so arrogant that Anos felt like it was an obligation to show him how weak he was. At first, he just straight up uses his heartbeat to beat the hell out of the guy until he is near death. But his biggest mistake was that he didn't give up. Anos had something more horrifying because with just a snap of his fingers, the dude was obliterated only to be resurrected. Ainz did this again and again and again, until he just broke the guy. It wasn't just overkill, the dude was straight up flexing that he was a god. And by the end of it, his opponent could do nothing but just give up while tears were coming out of his eyes. Ainz doesn't hold back, and I am loving it. Lugh launches a nuke, reincarnated in another world as an aristocrat.
俺は騎士じゃない。お前に花も息もくれてやれない。ただ、死ね。
We've had 2 isekai in a row, and we are not stopping now. Our boy Lugh was up against a monster of an enemy that wasn't even taken down after it was hit by a literal howitzer. So what does he do next? Well, he buys some time by talking to him, and after less than 5 minutes, the nuke hits his opponent directly on the head. It was so strong that not even the guy's intense regeneration was able to heal him. And you know that it was a literal nuke because it didn't explode once, but 3 times because there was just so much energy. Everyone has to follow Lugh's philosophy. If you can't win in a duel, then just call in an orbital strike with so much kinetic velocity that it blows up everything into smithereens. And can you really call him an assassin at that point? He's more like a mage who just uses American firepower as his main spell. Enjoying the vid? Well then, hit that like and smash that subscribe button. Thanks! Light writes down everyone's name. Death Note. Okay, there might be no explosions on this one, but it's still completely overkill no matter what angle you look at it from. Light was having the time of his life on this one because my man just went full on psycho mode and started writing dozens of names on the Death Note. Criminals were just full on dropping dead everywhere, and he treated it like he was writing the Declaration of Independence or something. By the end of it, he probably had finished writing more than 2 pages. It was like Light had a 1,000-word essay due in 1 minute. He was writing like he was running out of time, and I mean, how did they even make writing names so epic? The music was an absolute banger, and the first time I watched it, I got goosebumps. What else do I say? It's Death Note. This moment and the series itself is a complete masterpiece. Rimuru uses Megiddo, Tensura. Going back to massacring tons of humans, we have that time when Rimuru used Megiddo, and that time I got reincarnated as a slime. After what they did to him and his friends, Rimuru wasn't having any of it, and didn't have a single drop of mercy for any of them. It was beautiful, it was poetic, and it was what we wanted from this series since it began. Rimuru's KDA skyrocketed, and they were all headshots. It was a fast and efficient massacre that killed more than wiped out Falmuth's entire army. And if you look at the manga, it was even more brutal because some soldiers didn't even die outright, they were bleeding out. Rimuru didn't care if they had children. He didn't care if they were innocent. They were all eradicated. This really goes to prove why you shouldn't make a good person angry, because they might be a really OP slime demon king, and you're gonna regret what happens next. Kirito vs. Oberon, Sword Art Online. If that wasn't satisfying enough, next on our list is still one of the best fights in Sword Art Online. Not because of how good the animation was, which is still pretty great, but because of how the villain deserved that beating so much. Of course, Kirito was going up against that pervy elf, Oberon, and bro was so done that he set Oberon to level 1 using admin access. He even gave the guy Excalibur just so he could humiliate him even further. And to make things even worse, he set the pain tolerance to 0, and it was so satisfying. He felt the pain of each wound. I mean, imagine getting cut in half and not dying. To top it all off, Kirito pulled off a badass pose to prove that he was the MC. Look, you can trash talk SAO all you want, but there is no denying that this moment felt so good to watch. We don't like SA in SAO or in life in general, if you know what I mean. Alucard unleashes level 0, Hellsing Ultimate. Hellsing is probably one of the most violent anime to ever exist, and in Hellsing Ultimate, Alucard took things to another level when he finally unleashed Level 0. He was being shot by the KKK, by the German soldiers I can't tell you about, and then a lot more. But when Alucard unleashes his true powers, anything that they threw at him was torn to pieces. And you know that Alucard was the most dangerous being there because all of them just dropped everything they were doing and tried to kill him. Even the helicopters didn't stand a chance. It was just pure Armageddon. And I want you to watch the dub because it's freaking hilarious. Every single character there was just losing their minds trying to figure out what to do after Alucard single-handedly started the apocalypse. Other than that, Alucard is the definition of a one-man army, and there's no doubt that he is the devil himself. Everyone was literally trying to turn him into dust, but he turned them into a bloody pulp instead. The Rumbling, Attack on Titan. But what's more overkill than going out of your way to eradicate all of humanity except your friends? Well, that's exactly what Eren did when he decided to activate the Rumbling and Attack on Titan. Just imagine 50 to 60 meter giants stomping everything in their path, with no one seemingly able to stop them. And you're just there, a normal dude trying to live his life and already struggling with taxes. But hey, I get it. Some of you might actually be glad that you'll be stepped on by a giant dude with no skin. Well, Eren did technically do some insane damage because after the Rumbling, almost 80% of all of humanity on Earth died. Yep, in that short amount of time, Eren already killed millions, if not billions of people. He was actually serious when he said that he was going to kill everyone except for the people in Paradis, and he could back it up. Even when the world banded together and combined their military might, the Wall Titans were still just too many and too durable to stop. Ichigo vs. Ulquiorra, Bleach. Going to Bleach, we have one of the best fights the series has to offer, Ichigo vs. Ulquiorra. Now, just like in Super Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann vs. Anti-Spiral, both these characters went overkill, but I do think that Ichigo took it a step further. He just went berserk after his full hollow form was activated. Even Ulquiorra's ultimate transformation couldn't beat Ichigo. Their battle was devastating, so much so that it destroyed large parts of Las Noches. When I first watched it, I had never felt so hyped in my entire life. These two beasts were just going all out, trying to tear each other apart without even caring about collateral damage. And even after Ichigo slashed Ulquiorra, he made sure that he stayed dead by stepping on his head and blasting him with so much energy that it almost looked like a nuke had gone off. Well, Ulquiorra didn't die, but I think that was for the best, because we had one of the most poetic endings in a fight too. But still, they wasted no time in trying to kill each other, and they went straight to hands. Frieren tells Aura to off herself. Frieren beyond Journey's End.
Aura, 自害しろ。
But there's one little elf that might have a small body but has a big heart when it comes to killing demons in the most badass ways possible, and that is Frieren from Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Now, she has a lot of overkill moments, especially when she fights her clone, but her duel against Aura might have to be the best one. For you to understand what happened, let me explain it to you a little bit. You see, Aura's power allows her to control anyone that has less mana than her, but she completely underestimated Frieren's mana, and let me tell ya, it was hundreds if not thousands of times greater than hers. Aura's ability backfires and Frieren just casually tells her to off herself. I mean, how badass is that? Frieren didn't even hesitate to say it. It was as if she was just asking how the weather was during breakfast, and Aura couldn't do anything but just cry as Frieren didn't even look at her as she chopped her own head off. Gon beats Pito over and over. Hunter x Hunter. If you've never watched this next one, then I'm sorry, but you don't get to call yourself a true anime fan. It's not only one of the most iconic moments in Hunter x Hunter, but in all of anime. From when he got insanely long hair that beats out even a Saiyan's, Gon was already destined to win. I mean, he specifically did that to beat Pito, and bro's calculations weren't wrong. His first move launches her into the stratosphere, and his second absolutely smashes Pito's face. When Pito was already dead, Gon didn't even stop. He spammed rock over and over again. I think Gon's calculations were wrong. He didn't mature his body to the point where he could defeat Pito. He matured it to the point where he could one-shot Pito. It wasn't even a fight, it was an execution. And even when Pito managed to cut off Gon's hand, his face didn't even twitch. And to make it even more savage, he used his severed hand to pierce the body and smash it against his decapitated limb. It was brutal and it was shocking. Saitama versus Boros, One Punch Man.
俺のせいに刺激を与えてくれ。そのために来たんだ。
バカかお前。
Yeah, now hear me out. This might be a shocker, but everything Saitama does, even his normal punches, are overkill. So him being the last one on this list just makes sense. And of course, we're gonna add something appropriate. And it's none other than the moment when he almost went all out in his fight against Boros. I mean, it wasn't even close, but you get my point. This was the only time in the anime so far where we saw Saitama use more than one punch against his enemies. And Boros was overkill too, going as far to sacrifice his entire life force just to unleash his ultimate potential. We saw Saitama use consecutive normal punches, and even use his serious punch from his killer move, Serious Series. The animation, the music, the vibes, and just the epicness of this fight still make it top tier. But I guess it had some emotional moments too, because in the last conversation, these two had reflected on how similar they were to each other, realizing that being too strong can become a curse at the very end. And for a satirical and comedic anime, that's deep. But what do you think is the best moment where MCs went overkill? Let us know your rankings in the comments below, or if you have anything else to add to this list. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell for more videos like this one.